That's how we lead in right there. That's perfect.
Ooh.
We're keeping that. We're keeping that. This is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You're listening to the You Should Know podcast. We have our friend Boss on today. We're going to be talking a lot about his book. Him and Kevin Wheeler wrote a book, so we're going to talk a lot about that and a lot about all kinds of things. We could kind of get into sewage news if we want to get into that. There's probably a lot of stories about that and town acquisition that we can bring together. Boss, thank you so much for being on the show. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm awesome to be back again on the show, or one of your many shows. My name is Bas van der Haterd. I live in the Netherlands. I have been in this industry for about 20 years now. I've just published my 6th book in total, but my first in English. So the rest is non-existent for your listeners. And
Hey, Google
I have,
Translate.
Sorry. Yeah.
Most of them are very specific to the Dutch market and the way we work as well. So, and I run a big conference here in the Netherlands. I do some consulting with companies on talent acquisition, mainly candidate experience and selection and assessments. And I speak all over the world on those topics.
So what I took away from that, William, was that Americans only understand one language.
100%.
That's what I took from that. But
and Ryan, that's a stretch. We barely understand English.
That's very true. But Boss, we're so glad to have you here, man. Let's just jump into the book. I haven't gotten to read it yet, so I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, and I know it comes out March 1st. Is that what I saw, or is it out
Actually,
now? Pre-sale?
It's February 27th. Tomorrow, after we're recording this.
Oh, look at that! Breaking news. We got it right here. What was the inspiration on the book? Tell us about that.
Well, to be honest, it started in COVID. And basically, because I make most of my money and spend most of my time speaking at events, I was bored out of my mind, and I figured Kevin would be as well. So I just sent him a message like, Kevin, what are you doing right now? And would you consider writing a book together with me? And he was like, yeah, because you have actually been able to finish books and I've only started them. So let's try to get this puppy on the road. We actually only started writing after we met in person after the pandemic was over, but we discussed, we had almost weekly discussions on what we were going to be talking about. And it was, we figured that AI was going to change basically everything in TA. During the writing of the book, all of a sudden ChatGPT came out. So we all of a sudden had to adjust certain chapters about this is what's going to be possible to look, this is what just happened. Which also meant that we were on the right track because, it just showed us everything which we thought we were going to see in 4 or 5 years' time, just 2 or 3 years earlier.
So the book's title is Talent Acquisition Excellence, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
How'd you come up with that? Like, well, you could have named a book a jillion different things. So why do we start with that?
That's actually because the publisher had a very big say in the title.
Gotcha. Fair.
And as far as we're concerned, it was the least worst title they suggested.
Here's 5. All of them are horrible. What's the least horrible?
Just what?
No, the original title was Talent Acquisition in the Age of AI. But apparently AI works terrible in the Amazon algorithm search and every search engine. So we couldn't use AI in the title. And then we just ping-ponged about 25 titles up and down. And we ended up the discussion that it was Talent Acquisition Excellence.
Well, excellence isn't a bad thing. I mean, you're shooting for excellence. A lot of people are shooting for that and miss. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad title.
No, it's not a bad title. That's what I said. It was. We were personally thinking a lot about talent acquisition scenarios because there's so many scenarios in there, and I think the premise of the book, which we found out during writing, is there is no one way to do talent acquisition right. There are a lot of ways to do it badly, but there's also several ways to excel at talent acquisition.
Right.
Let's focus on the bad.
Yeah.
what do you see as bad? Define that.
I think that as long as we still are about between 30 and 50% mishires,
Yeah.
we suck at our job.
Right.
And let's be very honest. If you had a lawyer who was right about the law 50% of the time, do you believe that you would still hire that person? If your
No.
salary was correct 50% of the time, would you still work for that company?
Yeah. Point taken.
Point
So
taken.
Although if you hit 200 or 250 and you fail 75% of your time, you hit the Hall of Fame.
In baseball, only in baseball.
Yeah,
It's the
only in
only
baseball.
sport. In football, the club that you support, if they win 50% of the time,
You're dead.
you're disappointed.
you're a Tottenham supporter.
Go Spurs.
I love the Spurs, but I actually recently had that on a television show where people were like, yeah, but in Europe they still support teams which are always losing, and then
100%.
then the Brit said, yeah, but those people are from Tottenham.
Well, there's a Netflix special called Sunderland Till I Die, which
Yeah,
is
I know.
absolutely fantastic. But it's that deal. They went from Premier, went down to the Championship, and they got relegated again to League One, and they took 4 years to get back up to the Championship. So, but their supporters, they never wavered.
No,
I
but
mean,
that's very specific European, and
yes,
there's a lot of things. I mean, I once bailed on. I used to support the team from my hometown,
right.
and I'm one of those few people who doesn't even know a single player from them right now, because the way they were running the club was,
Yep.
let's just say, not in line with my ethical.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that there was a lot
100%.
of crime, and the club would not address people basically beating up other supporters and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And I turned away from them, and I literally had a lot of people who say like, "Yeah, you're just not a real supporter."
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I'm gonna support them when they're within my values, and not support them when they're out.
yeah, and it's I actually talk to people sometimes like, listen, we've got a Dutch team who basically were not allowed into Rome again because they trashed the Trevi fountains, and then unrepairable, and
Yeah.
they're like, yeah. I'm like,
I make one mention of sports, and the two of you
Oh
just
yeah.
take it off
This
into
is
another
what
world. I
happens.
know nothing about. Dare I say soccer? I know
Oh
nothing.
no.
I know nothing about it.
I
But
didn't get your baseball reference either, Ryan. I was very happy that William
wait,
made
how did you
he
start
was
off?
talking about
How
I
did you
had to
start the
baseball.
call
translate.
off? Right?
I had to translate. Ryan was like making a baseball reference. I'm like,
Yeah.
boss doesn't care
Yeah,
about
I'm
baseball.
American, man. I'm American. I know some of English. I know a little English, and I'm good. I'm good. But
Yeah.
let's get back to the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. Let's get back to the book.
Let's get back to the book. Talent excellence. Define that. Walk us through
Ta-
what is Boss's definition of talent
Yeah.
excellence.
Like I said, there is a lot of ways to do talent acquisition in an excellent manner, and I think
Right.
starting with having a talent strategy and then executing on it. So whatever you do, start at the beginning point. Have a talent strategy, not a talent acquisition strategy, a talent strategy
Mm,
in line with your corporate strategy.
right.
And that can be basically anything, because there's a lot of different corporate strategies. So we talked about, if you are a grow your own company, make sure that you have a talent strategy and that you have a grow your own talent acquisition strategies. You should hire on potential. Now,
Right.
if you're, I actually put in a low budget Dutch airline case in there, who says, listen, we're low budget, hence we don't pay the highest wages, because then we wouldn't be able to have the lowest airfares.
Right.
So for our IT staff, that's an issue. So we have a grow your own IT staff. We basically give people who we can measure with assessments and selection, have the talent to be a good IT person, who say they want a good IT person. We also measure them then on their learning agility, and we give them a traineeship to become IT at our company. And that's
Right.
how we can pay them way below average or below average
Right.
for a few years. And so we build our talent you know,
Do
we
they
have a
have a
talent
do they have
strategy.
a retention problem though with that strategy? Do they get them up to a certain point and then they leave because they can make more money elsewhere?
Um, Up to a certain point, yes, but interestingly enough, people do really think that if you give them a chance, they are way more loyal. You know, it's the most loyal people I've ever seen at organizations are people with a physical disability,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they weren't discriminated against. They were given a chance. I once had a great friend of mine who was in a wheelchair. And he literally said, "Yeah, it's not like I'm going. You know, I'm underpaid here, but it's not like I'm going anywhere because, you know,
right.
nobody will accommodate
That's right.
the fact that
Yeah.
I'm in a wheelchair. And by the way, I already limit myself to people with an office with an elevator,
Right, right.
which
Which is
basically limits the companies I can even apply to."
right, right. So take us through the
Hmm.
book, chapter by chapter. Let's just go through it really quickly. What were y'all trying to talent acquisition excellence? Okay, we've already kind of talked about that, but take us through the book. What were you trying to achieve chapter by chapter?
Well, we start with simply giving the world showing the world of talent acquisition as it is right now, which means um, demographics play a big role in the US, less than in Europe, because you've got a lot more people coming to your country, and we are now even limiting migration a lot.
Right,
But the graying of the world, combined with the gig economy, people
right,
don't want to work full time, don't want to work everywhere, combined with remote work. All those trends are in there, but also there's a big technological shift coming. What are the most rewarded skills to have? It used to be memory. You know, a lawyer was a very well paid person if you could cite during a trial
right.
all kinds of case studies. You know,
Alex,
it's
Alexa.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So we are thinking about what skills will be rewarded, so to say.
Right,
You know, that's that.
right,
Future proof.
Um, uh, to give you an idea, the three main skills, and this is actually, I'm skipping to the end of the book because we have a nice, you know, flow in there. But the skills we believe will be extremely important for every company and every job is, on the one hand, the extreme researcher. So basically, the person who will dig down so deep in what was this AI trained on, and what was the source of the source of the source. You know, those people you don't like right now who keep asking those annoying questions in meetings, the people that we now kick
Right.
out, the people that we
right.
demote to the basement, you know, Mulder and Scully and X Files,
Yeah, yeah.
the people who just don't give up. The other one is the editor, the people who keep checking and improving what the AI did well and where there's still a little mistake. And with editor, I mean that can be a visual editor, but
Right,
the people who just improve on the AI. And the third one is the true creatives, the Gaudis, the Picassos, the weirdos of their time. Again, the people we used to kick out of the company because, like
Hmm.
Steve Jobs at Apple, this man, you know, at his first stint in Apple, he had a vision, he had an idea, and nobody understood him. I'm not saying that everybody who's ununderstood is a genius,
yeah.
but some people are just
Just
weird,
misunderstood. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
but there's also genius weird.
So let me
So,
ask you a question
mhm.
that I've had probably more in the last 6 months than before, and it's the agility question around, you know, TA falls in love with technology. They fall in love with process, and they become a bit rigid, and at least historically, we'll say, historically rigid in their approach to candidates. And I've seen candidates just so we've all seen the same thing. Candidates, they want things their way, they want things fast. And so it's almost back to a football analogy in some ways. It's like you see some managers that are system managers, and so the talent has to fit the system that they play. Or you also see some managers in football that they just take the talent and go, this is the talent I have. Okay, now let me create a system around that talent. And it seems like we're now in an era of talent acquisition where we can't be systems people anymore. That's the recruiting, the best recruiters in their teams. They have to learn how to be talent centric. In this case, candidate centric. So if whatever the candidate needs from them, they have to be able to have the agility to re-engineer their process or their tech or whatever to then fit the talent, what the talent needs. That's what's been going on in my mind for the last couple of months. Destroy all that, by the way.
I disagree with you because
Okay.
the thing, first of all, I disagree with the premise that we've been process minded. I wish we were.
Okay.
I wish we would actually think, which is a few of the things we talk about in the book a lot,
Fair.
about the process and
Right.
consciously design every step in the process. If we've done that, it wouldn't be such a problem because let's be very honest, if we consciously design the process, no 2 months would ever pass between a hire. So
Right.
first of all, we're not process minded. We don't have the process in
Well,
mind when we design the process.
okay, but that begs the question for me. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong, but it begs the question, is there a process? You just said at the beginning there's no two talent acquisition, things that are the same, right? No hirings that are the same. So is it the ability to create a process, singular, or processes, plural, based on whatever the candidate needs at that particular moment?
I would say you need processes as an organization by definition. I was consulting with a local government recently, and we were buying a new ATS, and then I said, "Listen, we're not going to give every candidate the same process." And they're like, "Of course we are." And I'm like, "Why are we asking a garbage man for a resume just like our IT developer? What could possibly be in the resume of a garbage man that we're selecting on?" And everybody in the room was like, "Good point. Okay, we're going to create different processes." Literally nobody in the room understood why we were putting a garbage man through the exact same hiring process as the IT consultant or the security. Why we were putting an IT security guard through the same process as the security guard. It's
not
ridiculous.
The same. It's not the same. In the book, do you get into the process or the processes that you're recommending to be developed? What does that look like? How does a TA leader walk their team through this?
Well, it's so in the book, what we try to do is first of all, we look at more the grand perspective of the process, or actually the grand perspective on how to organize a TA team, which is more well, you guys know Kevin Wheeler. Kevin Wheeler's global approach to should you have a data hub, should you have this hub, or his supply chain model. How do you look at the supply chain of a process? What I then have tried to do is, because Kevin is way more strategical, I'm more tactical, is okay, now your global process looks like this. How do you implement it at a national or even a local level? What we haven't tried to design a process because it's so different for high volume versus specialist hiring. It's way different between the US and Europe. One of the things we've tried to do in the book a lot is actually give examples from different regions of the world. I remember Kevin at some point writing, and of course a drug test will always be a part of it. And I send him back like, you do know those are illegal in most of Europe, right? So I'm sorry, I'm not going to put in the book that that's a given.
And ineffectual in most of the United States. Yes.
That's got to be hard to write the book from a global perspective in that case.
Unless you're just storytelling. Again, if you're not trying to convey to the audience, this is the way, more of a hey, if you're in Cambodia and you're recruiting in Cambodia, here's what goes on there. Like that's actually cool stuff. But I don't think there's truisms, threads that you pull that can go globally. I've always, every time I've been in a room where someone talks about global recruiting, it's hard to pull one thread that goes all the way through that makes sense for everybody.
And yeah, and that's exactly it. And what we try to do is very often simply emphasize the difference mainly between the US and Europe.
Right.
Just by, like my example with drug tests, you know,
Right.
like, of course, the social constructs that we have, like being able to hire or fire.
Data privacy.
Data privacy. But also, you know, in the Netherlands, it's very unique when it comes to part-time work. While in the US, that's frowned upon. In the UK, that's what only the people who can't get a full-time job do.
Right.
And I literally, just a simple example, I've become friends with a Ukrainian refugee who had to fly the war twice now because he was originally from Crimea. And I was helping him, introducing him to TA leaders to get a job here. He's originally a Scrum Master, so there's no shortage of work for him, you know.
Right.
And he said, yeah, but I want to finish my Dutch lessons before I start applying. And I'm like, but you have 2 mornings a week Dutch lessons. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you can simply tell your TA manager that you're on a 4-day work week and yet you have 2 days off, and everybody will understand.
Yeah.
And he understood it, but he refused to do it because nobody works part-time. You know,
that doesn't happen. That's not. Yeah.
And especially, well, women might work part-time as a Ukrainian, but the men, then you're just, you know, then you're not a manly man if you work part-time.
That's a cultural norm.
Yeah.
And so we try to do that. I have some examples from the Middle East where I used to do some training as well. Like, I mean, if you get like Emirates Airways, 50,000 applicants on your customer service jobs every quarter, you're sure as hell going to use some technology to shift through that. You know, you have to. And and in their case, let's start with checking them on a video for the level of English they speak.
That's right.
Because they come from every region of the world.
Yeah. Right. So let's. It kind of gets me into another question I wanted to ask you. Is kind of long term. Over the next decade, where do you see talent acquisition evolving to?
Where do I see it, or where do I hope it to go to? Those are two different things.
Go with hope.
Let's go with hope.
Let me start with hope. And so I hope that we're going to be more like the talent advisors, that we are going to be looking holistically at the talent within the organization as a true strategic partner.
When you say that, you're talking about in the organization, meaning post-hire.
Well, post-hire, but also pre-hire. Like, let's have the discussion with. To give you an example, one of the transformations I was a little bit a part was at I was a consultant at a ministry. We bought an assessment tool. We made it. Every candidate got assessment reports. You know, or I got a chance to give them as soon as they applied. They got a link. Show us, you know, who you are, what you're worth, etc., etc.
So you didn't rule anybody out.
We didn't rule anybody out until they did the assessments. We ruled them out based on their resume and the skills check and the competency stack check we did.
I like that. Everybody has a chance.
Everybody got the same chance. Well, we saw the hiring manager started with, I don't believe in assessments. When we finished the pilot, they were like, how am I supposed to know what this candidate is without the data about his character? You know, but the thing which changed, and that's why I said true talent partners, is that the recruiters were now having debates with the hiring managers like, okay, so you have a very analytical team. That's amazing because you're in data, etc., etc. But we also know that your team is lacking some communication skills. You know, that's why you're not the most loved team in the organization. Maybe our next hire has a lower bar for when it comes to your analytical skills, because not below the bar, it's just on the acceptable level.
But they're better
we
at
then
communications.
over-index on communication skills, so you'll be able to better present all the great stuff you're doing for this organization.
Right.
And that's what I mean with being a talent partner. Also having these debates with the hiring manager, not just an order taker, but a talent partner. I see that, to give you an example, one of the companies I love in this it's called CWS. They basically have all these stuff hanging in toilets everywhere. They provide the toilet paper for major stadiums and those kinds of things, and all the cleaning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Their TA department simply puts people on an interview with the hiring manager without ever asking the hiring manager, is this okay? And their head of TA there is a good friend of mine, and she says, so whenever I'm in a region, I will make sure that I have at least half an hour or drinks or lunch with the hiring managers I'm recruiting for in order to see what this person cares about. And I have the respect from the hiring manager that if I am saying this candidate will come to on an interview, and you then still have the respect to reject him, but not before you spoke to the person.
So what's your current take? Oh, go ahead. Did you need to finish the thought?
No.
What's your current take on the skills that TA needs to succeed in the coming years as it relates to AI, generative AI? What do they need to have skills wise? Because if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we might not be talking as much about AI. We'd have been talking about the technology stack. They need to understand all the different technologies that kind of stack together and how they work. Maybe even to have a STEM discussion. They need to learn coding, have a degree of understanding around stats and data, etc. Okay, we can still have that conversation. Or in the next couple of years, they need to have a better feel for how to use AI, how to use generative AI, etc. So, just take us through kind of where you think their knowledge and skills, how they need to adapt to the next couple of years technology-wise.
I think, and this is the worst answer, but it depends. But it depends on the position within the TA cycle you have. I mean, we're going to have more specializing towards either attraction or selection. You can't expect a recruiter to write amazing job descriptions if that recruiter also needs to be an amazing interviewer.
Oh, interesting.
So we are going more to the specialized parts of recruiting. I think a lot of it has to do with, like I said earlier, the editing skills. Because ChatGPT actually writes a pretty decent job description. Now you have to make it excellent.
Which gets to the editing part.
Which is the editing part, improve on what we've got. I think another very important, extremely important skill everybody needs is, you might call it analytical skills or data analyst, but with data, I mean, you get the data from your app, whether it's, one of the things to give you an idea is interviews. So either you're a great interviewer, but you might not be a great note taker on an interview, or you might be not amazing at interpreting it. But those skills can now be done by AI. And I've actually seen AI apps which interpret what the candidate has said. So now, instead of having to interpret the feedback from the candidate, you have to analyze the data which comes from the app, which the candidate said. And that also gets rid of a lot of bias, because if it's done right, the analysis is a lot less biased on certain terminology and on what people have and have not said and how you interpret a word versus,
Can AI do all of that though? Can AI both analyze what the candidate said and analyze what you should know about what the candidate said?
it can analyze what the candidate said and what you should know about it, but not who, based on that data, is the best fit within the team. So
fit still is the dynamic of, like you said, with
fits the dynamic of the team. And actually, we made in the book, I made a very short reference to when we go to quantum computing.
Yeah.
This is the part where they will actually take over from human recruiters, because quantum computing. But thankfully, quantum computing is 25 years away, probably.
Still can't cool it.
Exactly.
They got to figure out how to cool
because it's not an AI problem. Quantum computing is
no, it's not,
because it's genuine physics.
It's genuine physics. So you got to be able to cool it. If you can't cool it, doesn't matter how good it is.
Exactly. So basically, I think we're going to get there eventually. But right now, seeing and actually analyzing what is the team, what are the team strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the candidates, what do they bring? Basically, to go back to your earlier sports analogy, which position fits best in this team?
Right.
And also to come back to your question about the structure and the different coaches. I think Louis van Gaal, who he is. Ryan has no clue, of course.
No clue. I'm gonna go grab a coffee. Hang on.
He was so close to winning a World Cup in South Africa. I mean, the Spanish team was a finesse team. He put together a fantastic plan. They executed the plan, and I went back and rewatched it like 2 weeks ago, and people don't realize how close the Dutch were to actually winning the World Cup.
Unfortunately, Van Gaal wasn't their coach. That was Bert van Marwijk.
No, that was Van Gaal. That was Van Gaal, because he took over United afterwards.
That was Bert van Marwijk, who we lost to. Van Gaal came after that.
You're Dutch. So you're going to go ahead and win.
I'm pretty sure Boss has the upper hand on this one.
I'm going to go look it up, because
but Van Gaal was one of the most amazing coaches. He won the Champions League with Ajax, which was a team which should never have been able to win it, with a major difference in finances back then. But anyway, what he always says is every player has their task within the team. That's your process. But those who are amazing are allowed to go beyond their task.
Right.
And that's, if you're talking about your process versus your freedom focus, it turns out Guardiola is like that. He says everybody has their tasks, and as long as you do exactly everything which we agreed upon, and you then still have some energy to do some more, then you're allowed to go completely creative.
Over and over and above.
Yeah,
Boss,
but you got to cover your tasks.
A question to kind of expand on some of the tech stuff we've been talking about. Where have you seen companies face an ethical dilemma when using the tech? How they navigate this?
Oh, I've seen so many face ethical dilemmas, and the way they navigate it is usually by putting their head in the sand.
Tell us how it really happens.
Seriously. What ethical dilemma?
Or as I recently experienced when I tried to warn somebody about it, compliance has signed off on it. It's legal and compliance signed off on it. So
we check the box. We're good.
Exactly. That's wow. If you're talking about the truth here, that's how they deal with it. Now, 100%. Within certain organizations, there are now ethical debates. For example, one of the ones I love the most is using ChatGPT as an applicant cheating?
No, not at all.
Well, that's your position. Others might have others. I at least think
100%. Well, is it cheating? No, of course it's not cheating, because you can do personalization. Finally, a candidate can then highly personalize tailor their resume, their experiences to a job description. There's nothing wrong with that.
As long as it's real information, is the truth, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, on the other side of that, we've had this debate over and over. If I can't use ChatGPT to help me tailor my resume? Why should you, as a recruiter or a TA professional, be able to use software to screen me in or out? Do it yourself.
No, listen, I'm with you guys. It's just some organizations aren't, and they're allowed
Yeah.
to. I just want them to have. I see them having the debates,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I want them to have the debate. And but to give you a very simple example, one of my best friends is a teacher, and he recently said, "Yeah, I caught my students using ChatGPT," and I'm like, "Why is that cheating?" And he's like, "Because they had to write a motivation on why they wanted to do my course." I'm sorry, I wrote their honors
That's pretty
motivation.
specific. That's pretty specific. That's
Yeah,
fair.
no,
That's
that's
pretty
why it
specific.
was.
That's
No,
fair.
so if you have a motivation letter, and
Yeah.
I've worked with assessment companies who had certain structures of how to evaluate written answers and
Yeah.
question, and there is a debate going on there. So if you're
Yeah.
talking about ethical dilemmas, this is one. What
Yeah.
are you and are you not allowed to use? I
What
see
if
a
you
lot of.
disclose? What if you disclose that you're using it? Does that
Well,
change your mind in any way?
no, but that's literally one of the options that they're saying. And I've had companies who say, we will post in our job description that we do not allow you to use ChatGPT, and if you do, you're disqualified. And when I've seen companies who said,
The
we
I
actually tell them, use ChatGPT because that actually makes it an equal playing field, because we know some of them are doing it and we're not going to even try to proctor it.
well, and again, it's the top 10 skills based on Indeed that are in demand are all AI related. So why would you rule people out that are using technology? I mean, I would if I were a company putting that out there, I would say, listen, if you're going to use AI, any form of AI, just disclose it. Just let us
Yeah.
know.
But
We have to
William,
disclose sponsors. Why, what's the difference?
Yeah.
But William, that's why you and I can't work for a corporate.
We're unemployable. That's the real reason. All right, you get asked this question because I know Ryan and I get to ask this question a ton. Automate versus augment. What do you see? Here in the next couple of years, the battle of okay, what gets completely automated, partially automated, and where's the augmentation need to be, etc. And so you ask 10 people, and you ask 10 recruiters, you're gonna get at least 15 different answers. So what's your take on augmentation versus automation, etc.?
We're actually working with a skills or a recruiter, or what's possible to be automated and augmented together with Kevin right now. But a lot of it, I think several things can be fully automated. I don't
Me
think
too.
we should be in job distribution anymore as a human being.
No.
I don't think we should be in ad creation for a big chunk anymore.
Employer brand content, Gen AI.
Creative.
It's employer brand content. It depends a bit on what part of the content, but let's all agree that no human should be involved in scheduling interviews.
100%.
Now, I think
can sourcing be completely automated?
Yes.
Me too. Okay.
It can be, but
I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's perfect.
No,
Ryan's head's about to explode.
We're not saying we're going to take this clip and push it out to all the recruiters and just fill your box with hate mail. But
I know. I
but
think it completely. I don't even understand why people source.
But let me be very specific here, or very clear. Technology can do the work of 100 ordinary men, but not the one of one extraordinary man. So there will always be a few amazing freaking sources who will always be better than the technology. The thing is, I was recently in a podcast on a Dutch radio show, and they asked me, like, Kevin Wheeler says that about 50% of the recruiters can be replaced. And you just said that recruitment won't be replaced. I said, but those two don't contradict each other, because I also said that most recruiters suck at their job. So, yes, about half of them will be replaced, because about half of them suck so much at their job that technology is better than them already.
The field's going to correct itself by natural selection.
Right.
Yes, but there will be a few amazing sourcers who will be able to find and I remember we had a sorcerer here in the Netherlands called Teddy Dimitrova. Yes, she's originally not from the Netherlands. She's originally Bulgarian. Who used to send her first outreach message to IT was 100% emoticons. That's all she sent.
I love
she
it.
has an
I
amazing
actually love
response
it.
rate.
I love it.
That's what.
It actually has the nickname.
What do they call that? The game?
Teddy
There's a game.
Mails. No, we call them Teddy Mails.
Teddy.
Because her name was Teddy, and nobody wrote an email with only emoticons. Teddy Mails. She's amazing at her job.
Amy Miller, she sends memes when she's recruiting tech talent. She just sends memes to them. Like, she gets them to laugh. They get to bond. She follows them. They follow her, etc. They build some type of relationship, and then she then starts the recruiting process. But at the beginning, it's not any of that stuff. It's not talking about positions or salary or any of that historical stuff. Boss, we need to wrap up. Best advice that you've heard from other people giving to recruiters? What's something that's stuck with you in the last year or so that you've heard somebody say and go, yeah, that's actually really good?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Can't be you or Kevin, so it's got to be somebody else.
No, I think John Vlastelica's move towards the talent advisor, which is actually where I got a lot of my inspiration on talent advisors. Credit where credit is due. I think, how do you organize being a genuine talent advisor is a great piece of advice. It might not be an advice, but it's something I've learned by somebody who changed jobs from head of recruitment from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was my client, and he is now our ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. So basically, don't limit yourself.
Oh. Well, there you go. Drops mic, walks off stage. Boss, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate you, and good luck with the book. It comes out tomorrow.
In the US. It's already out in Europe.
Right. Is it translated in different languages, Europe?
No, only English.
Only English. It's all right.
Okay. Well,
the world speaks English now.
Turns out.
Boss, thank you so much. Yeah, this has been really good. If you're watching, if you're still listening, like, subscribe, connect with us everywhere. Connect with Boss. We'll have his stuff in the show notes somewhere. And Boss, I'm sorry, but AI will create your show notes. So don't get mad at us.
And so it should.